Tori Kruse. Welcome to my channel. If you're new, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. Please put your comments below, and you can also find me on social media at Miss Tori Kruse. Today I have a very special guest on the show. His name is Tim Tialdo, and he has the amazing Pageant podcast, which he will share a little bit more information on what it is currently, but it was called Life After the Crown, an incredible podcast for pageant girls. He is an entrepreneur, he is a husband, he is a father, and I just want to I'll let Tim describe what he's up to now, and you have so many exciting things going on in your life. So I just want to welcome you, Tim, and thank you for joining me today on this live.
Well, thank you, and thanks for what you're doing. I know a lot of people appreciate, what you're putting out there, and it's certainly a great resource for all the girls. So thank you. But yeah, thanks for having me on. It's really a great pleasure to be here. What I'm doing, what do you need? That's usually what I ask people, because I kind of feel like I dabble in so many different types of industries. But I think the two biggest things that I do right now outside of hosting, which obviously is just kind of on hold because audience is just, it's not going to be happening anytime soon. I own two companies. So one I own with my wife. She owns a hair extension salon here in Denver, Colorado. It's the #1 salon, hair extension salon in Colorado. We've been doing that for, I think we formed the LLC in 2012. And so we enjoy doing that. I do all the back end work. Obviously, I don't do hair. I don't know anything about hair. So that's enjoyable to work with my wife. And then my other one is with a very good friend of mine out of St. Louis. It's a healthy organic meal delivery service called Pure Plates. And so we've been growing that. And believe it or not, COVID has actually helped us grow 40% just since the beginning of it. I think a lot of people are probably wondering about, is my immune system healthy? Am I staying healthy? And so they're trying to eat better. And so, I've been one of those businesses that's actually been blessed by it. So I'm thankful for that. But that's basically what I do. Anybody that listens to my podcast, I went on hiatus earlier in the summer. Wanted to take some time to really spend some time with my new little girl that I have, who's now 9 weeks old, and just really think through, what that future looked like for Life After the Crown. And we can certainly talk about that today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really do want to dive into Life After the Crown a little bit, because a lot of the women listening to this are pageant girls. And so that's how mostly everybody, in my group of women that I work with and everything are pageant girls. And that's how they know you the most, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Dive into Life After the Crown and tell people a little bit why you started that, first of all, and kind of that journey through, start to finish a little briefly.
Sure. I'd have to rewind back to 2015. So I was hired by RPM Productions, which is the Miles family, to host the Carolinas, Louisiana, Alabama. And so for those first 2 years, I had hosted America pageants before, but I had never hosted USA pageants. I had hosted Missouri and West Virginia back in the 2000s.
Ooh.
And so as I got to know, yeah, exactly. By the way, I am from the St. Louis area, so you and I.
Oh my gosh, I never even knew that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
So for those first 2 years, I just really got to know the process of how the USA pageants worked and, what the girls were going through. And I obviously, when the girls won the state pageants, the Miles allowed me to kind of help them with interview going into nationals. And I just really got to know them on a very personal level and learned what the pains were, but also what the excitement was. And the one thing that kept coming up, I guess, as a theme in the pain category was they were all really concerned about, after it was all over, like, what do I do now? That transition to pageant life is over. This is all I've ever prepared for. This is all I've ever known. It's all I've ever wanted to do. And now that no longer exists. What do I do now?
Yeah.
And I just kept hearing that. And, I'm hearing it from girls who were top 5 at USA and thinking, what do you mean? You've got your whole life in front of you. You're talented.
Exactly.
You've got all kinds of, opportunities. And so I sat down with a couple of them, and I had some personal phone calls with them. And I said, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? And they're like, that would be amazing. And so I just really made a very simple name, Life After the Crown, because that's exactly what that was about, was what do we do with life after the crown? And so obviously it wasn't going to be me telling everybody what to do, because I don't know anything about life after the crown. So my idea was, I'm going to interview all these past title holders and people who have been in the pageant community who have gone on to be successful in so many different ways, and just let them speak their knowledge. And that's pretty much what it is. And I'll just guide them through the interview with questions. And 102 episodes later here, I feel like, I honestly believe I've put out almost like a secondary college education for pageant contestants.
Seriously.
On, how to not only handle yourself in the pageant world, there's plenty of stuff in there on how to succeed in a pageant, but also just when it's over, or, sometimes that's abruptly over. You think it's going to be this, and then suddenly it's over, and you're like, now what? There are so many people and resources to listen to, and, literally hundreds of hours of podcasts to listen to help people. So that's where it all came from. I would say the first title holder who was top 5 at USA was Megan Gordon, who really had expressed this disdain for, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, she was a nurse, but she was like, I don't know if that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I'm concerned. And, I've loved pageants, and I've been so excited and driven by it. And now it's over, and I really feel lost. And so I've had Megan on to talk about it. I've told her, you're one of the big reasons I started this thing.
Oh, that's so cool. I mean, I can relate to everything you just said. I'm full-heartedly. And that's actually why I started my podcast, It's Breakthrough Time. And why I do these interviews is pretty much the same reason. Was like every, in pageantry especially, we get so many no's. And to, reframe your mind to every no is one step closer to your yes, even when it gets to the life after the crown, because we're prepping ourselves for massive breakthrough every time we're getting told no, and in crisis moments. And so with your podcast, it's just so relatable because, when I went to Miss USA and I worked 8 years for the crown, and then I got the crown, I went to Miss USA and I didn't even place, but I was prepping like I was going to win, but then I didn't even place. And I was like, okay, so I'm at that point, it was sad. I was discouraged, all that stuff. But then it wasn't moments later. It was like, aha, I have a business opportunity out of this. Like, I can help girls who got told no so many times and help them get, back up on their feet and break through the challenges. So what you did with that podcast and the influence that you've made is so, so powerful. And I know it's just helped so many girls.
Yeah, thank you. I got to ask you this real quick.
Yeah.
The plane ride home from USA, was that the toughest part for you?
It was weird. I don't even know. I think the toughest part for me was when I was up on stage and they just called the 15th girl to go up, and they didn't call Missouri. And I was just like, I remember looking at my parents right in the front row, and I looked at them and I was like, wait, what? Like, I was just confused. It was like, wait, are you serious? Did that just happen? I just devoted 8 years of my life to this, and then I didn't even make it to top 15. And then I was like bummed on stage for a second. And before I even walked out off a stage, I looked at my parents and I said, God has a plan. And that was just right then and there. It was like, it was the hardest part, not hearing Missouri. But then when I got on the plane to go home, it was strange because it was just like, wait, what am I doing? Yeah. Like, wait, what's going on? Like, oh, yeah, you're still Miss Missouri for another how many months. So you still need to, do your appearances and be Miss Missouri. But it felt like the world's kind of over in a second.
Yeah, and I think that's the toughest part for most of all of you to accept is, you're a woman of faith. I mean, sometimes we don't like God's will. God's will for us is not this path that we thought, man, I put everything I had to be there, but you got to look back at the journey that prepared you to be there and remember all the things that you learned that you can now apply maybe, as you've learned in other ways. And I think that's the thing that sometimes I love to hear from the girls who have moved on from pageants and been successful is that they're like, I hated those first few months after.
Yeah.
But then when I figured out that I had to move on and what I had learned, it really, helped me to move forward in a successful way.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I mean, I really actually viewed pageantry in a sense when I figured out why I wanted to win instead of just like, oh, I just want to win. When I actually figured out why, it was like, I kind of viewed it as a business in a sense, because I was like, we're learning a lot in pageantry. I mean, that is so valuable for your career path. And it was like every step of the way, I was like, how can I use what I learned last year as a stepping stone to my future career path and not have pageantry be the end all be all, instead use it as a stepping stone to my next success. And so that's what I did. And honestly, I think just viewing it as that has helped me. It really did help. So
what attribute did you probably get the most out of it? I mean, I would, just knowing you're a public speaker, so I would think that being up on stage in front of people was probably one of the greatest advantages that you got out of competing.
Yeah. Yeah, that was just so exhilarating in itself. It's like when you work so hard for something, right? It's like you just want to go out there. And it was one of those moments where I wasn't even as nervous to go out on the Miss USA stage live on Fox than I was, just being videoed at Miss Missouri, because I had worked so hard to get there, where it was like when they said Missouri, I was like, all right, let's go. Like, this is my moment. I was so excited to actually be there. And it was like I just didn't want that moment to end. It was just so cool. And it was, a very, few girls at the end of the day get to experience something like that. And I just wanted to so badly be that role model for girls.
And you are. Don't ever take that away from yourself.
Yeah, I look at my crown every day, right? But here we are, like, I mean, it's almost like 2 interviews here. You have 2 people who interview, all the time. We're like, gosh, we just want to interview each other. Yeah, exactly. So going back to the Life After the Crown podcast, and you're an entrepreneur, like what kind of, breakthroughs have you had in your career? It's not easy being an entrepreneur. It's not easy probably being a husband or father, and, also running your podcast at that level. How do you break through those challenges every single day?
I think I learned well over the years. I had a lot of failures early on, and I think a lot of the times I failed because I quit too early.
Oh,
And one of the things that I had to learn, and I think it really, as I got into, at the point when I got married and really took on the responsibility of having a family and now having kids, is you can't quit.
mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of people out there who believe that if I don't like it, I can just quit. Well, you're really setting yourself up from the beginning for disaster, because you've really always got that plan B of, I'll just take this road.
Yeah.
If I'm uncomfortable, or if I go broke, or if it gets tough, or I'm stressed out, I can just quit. And I don't ever, that's just not even an option for me anymore. And so, the businesses that I do, and we'll talk about the podcast here in a minute, but I've gone longer in these businesses than I've ever gone in anything else I've ever done. Even television news anchoring, hosting, I'm in my 14th year. So those are things that I just refuse to give up on. Now, let's just take hosting as an example. Obviously, we're in a time where hosting doesn't exist. For live audiences, I can't do that right now. So I think it's important to diversify your portfolio a little bit. I wouldn't say stretch yourself thin with like 5 or 6 companies, but, definitely have 2 or 3 things that you can always rely on, that if something, goes through a tough time that you literally can't control in any way, shape, or form, that you've got something else to kind of fall back on. And so you've got to persevere and fight through those tough times, which I know we all have. None of us want to admit it. We all want to put up we want to put up the Instagram story that life's perfect and look at my life. And I get it, but that's not life. And that's certainly not entrepreneurship, as you have, I'm sure, figured out already. And I think it's important to just know that, you have to go in with that mindset of, I'm in this for the long haul. I know I'm going to go through some challenges, some hills, some valleys, and also through some mountaintops, which are going to be great. But I think over time, you'll learn how to decrease the amount of valleys that you go through just by everything, the wisdom that you learn.
Absolutely. And so during those times, of course, you didn't just wake up one day and had that mindset. Like you said, you failed multiple times. Like, what were those turning points when you would fail? How would you dig yourself out of that hole and build yourself back up to tackle that next goal?
I remember I went broke. I've been broke twice in my life, where I literally like open the cabinets, like I don't know what I'm going to eat tomorrow, that type of broke, where it's really like scary.
Yeah.
The first time, I'll be honest, I cried a lot. I cried a lot when I went to bed. I had a lot of conversations with God in the ceiling, where we're just like, hey, I don't know what to do here. I think in those times you learn to really look back and be honest with yourself about what you did and didn't do. And most of it would be what I didn't do. And, sometimes God will point that out to you and be like, I love you, but I'm not going to not discipline you. I'm going to tell you, like, these are the things that you need to learn how to do if you want to be an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And so I had to learn those things. I would say that I really was never, ever good early on with finances. Mm-hmm. I was the dreamer. I'm the creative. I love to put stuff. That's why I do video and audio and podcasting and hosting. I love to just do that creative stuff, but I never cared about the bottom line, detailed accounting stuff. And I had to learn that. And then let me tell you what, I'm thankful that I have my very good friend who's in the other business with me. He's really taught me most of that. um, he has helped me fight through some tough situations where I'm just like, this is like calculus. I don't even want to hear, I don't want to hear it. I hate it. But now it's funny because I'm not totally analytical, but now, in our business, I am very analytical. I'm looking into the numbers every day. I'm checking out, all the KPIs and the things that are determining the temperature of the business. And it's fascinating to me now, whereas I once looked at it and went like, somebody else can handle that. I just want to do this.
Right.
And I think as an entrepreneur, I think we all have our core strength that we go in with. Let's say yours is public speaking. So you love to be in front of people. You're a great communicator, but there's all these other areas of running a business that you can't not do. You have to figure them out. Yes, you can always have your strength, which your and my strength is pretty much the same thing, but that wasn't enough. I mean, I got it, I did really well in television, was always on a top show or had great ratings or, did really well, had a great audience. And I always thought that would carry me. And I think I was arrogant in that, to be honest with you. I mean, I think I'm full of myself that I thought, oh, I'm good, and you get humbled really quick. And I think the same goes for pageants. I mean, you could finish Miss USA, and I've talked to Miss USAs. They were humbled really quickly.
Yeah.
And so you have to be able to really take a step back in humility and go, okay, I am really good at these things. These things I don't know. It's probably best I find some mentors or some people who can help coach me through those. Or, if you have the financial resources, even hire people who can help you with
right.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, you mentioned a lot of good things there, but it really, something that sticks out is when you say mentors, because when you're trying to achieve something, a large dream or goal, or, even as an entrepreneur, I feel like we always just need some sort of mentor or coach that's kind of guiding us through. And I'm right there with you. Yeah, our strengths are definitely the more speaking. We want to be in front of people. We enjoy that. And for me, it has been a process too, to like, all right, we need to hone in on learning the financials, and you have to really do some things, no matter what your goal is you have to do things that are making you uncomfortable and challenging you. Pageants, I hated current events. I don't know the last time that I've turned on my TV and watched the news, because in pageantry, you had to, right? But that was the thing where I was like, I hate studying current events.
And I think that's it for most pageant girls. I mean, I think they love the being on stage, being in a swimsuit, being in an evening gown, being a celebrity. But the question is always, I can't think of any girl I've ever talked to where the question isn't like, I hate this part. And it's like, I know.
But that's part of succeeding in anything. You have to do something that, whether it's a health journey or pageant journey or entrepreneurship, anything, you have to do some part of it that you don't want to do. And, you mentioned mentors. Do you ever have any mentors or have you ever experienced in your life where you have a coach or mentor in something and they're teaching you this lesson, like, hey, this is what you need to do to get this result. And then you don't listen to them, and then you don't get the result. And then maybe a couple of years later, you come back and you're like, okay, maybe I'll listen this time.
I can think of two mentors in particular that trial by fire. I mean, they put me through the ringer, and they did not let me, it was sink or swim. And they're like, I guess you're going to sink because you're not listening, and they don't rescue you. And I appreciate that. I look back on that now. And I mean, I tell them almost all the time when I talk to them, I'm like, thank you. Thank you for not being easy on me, because it forced me to figure out those things that we talked about earlier. And, now it's to the point where I feel like if I start a business, I'm almost positive I can be moderately to ultra successful if I just follow what I've already learned and known from, people who went before me who were very ultra successful and still are. And so I think, mentors are a big part of probably figuring out entrepreneurship well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That's been a lifesaver for me. I was just coaching one of my group coaching clients, or the whole group, last night, and I was speaking on that topic. And so I just kind of wanted to see your input on, because that's been my experience, and pageant, I was placed in semifinalist when I wasn't listening to my coaches. And then I started listening to my coaches, and I'm like, oh, second runner up. Okay, that looks good. First runner up. Okay. And then I won. It was like, listen to coaches. It's a huge, huge thing. So on a different note, there's times when I'm sure kind of negative thoughts pop in your head when it comes to entrepreneurship, business, any area of life, personal or professional. How do you really switch your mindset? Do you have any daily habits that you do that really help you stay on track?
I do. And it usually starts about 4:00 in the morning.
Wow, 4:00.
Yeah. Well, after I had kids, I figured out like when's the quiet time of the day when I can, get quiet in prayer and just really, do some meditation as well. And that became the time. I get up at 4:00. I come out here to my couch. I usually get a cup of coffee, and I just sit there in peace and quiet. And sometimes it's listening, sometimes it's praying, sometimes it's reading scripture, sometimes it's just kind of thinking through maybe the problems that I'm dealing with and how I'm going to tackle them for the day. But I think that quiet time and being able to listen, if you're a person of faith, is incredibly important, because you can pray all day long, but if you're not listening for the answer, it's like having a one-way conversation.
Oh, that's so true.
I think that's the most important thing in my life that has helped me. And I would say that has increased since I've been married, because it forced me to really, when you're single, you've got all the time in the world.
Right.
And you get alone anytime you need to. But when you're married, it's like, you can't do that all the time. And now when I have kids, it's like, when they get up, it is all them. And so I had to figure out, what am I going to do? And I think there's an old statistic, like people that wake up before 4:30 are some of the most successful people in the world. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to be successful just because you get up at 4, but if you get up at 4 for a legitimate reason, and you use that time well, which I feel like I'm doing, that has helped me immensely, because, it allows you to get things off your chest. If you've got things that are bothering you, you can talk to God, you can ask for forgiveness. You can say, hey, help me with this. I don't know what to do here. Can you guide me here? Can you lead me? Find me a person who can help me, a mentor, all that kind of stuff. That's probably the most important thing, I would say, the foundation in my life. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. That morning routine is essential. And listening, like you said, I mean, I've been through numerous times too, where you pray and you don't listen. You just hustle and bustle through the day, and you look at your phone or laptop right away in the morning, and before you know it, it's 9 a.m. and you're like, oh wait, I haven't prayed and I haven't listened and I haven't meditated. So that's awesome advice. For anybody listening right now, but especially anybody who's in pageantry and setting really, really large goals for yourself, that right there is key. Like, don't spend an hour, scrolling through Instagram, seeing what everybody else is doing. Take that moment for yourself, because right there, what Tim said is perfect. Like, you need that moment to just visualize your dreams, meditate, listen, and it seriously, taking that time to yourself is amazing. So, Tim, what other piece of advice would you have for any ladies listening? You've been around the pageant industry for so long. You're an expert in it by now. And, the girls are going through some crazy times right now with pageant season. I mean, it's all up in the air. So what kind of advice would you give to them right now in this time of uncertainty?
Well, especially with the fact that there aren't any pageants going on.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, for instance, the next pageant I'm doing that I know of is in January. So, you've got to look at this downtime and say, what am I doing to, number one, prepare myself for whenever it does come? It's not going to come because, a date is announced and then you're like, okay, now I'm going to go. No, you should have been going 3 months ago. It should be constant preparation every day. The consistency, I would say, from everybody that I've ever dealt with, including Tori Kruse, who is current Miss USA, the consistency, the day in, day out hard work of, constantly keeping themselves in shape, knowing current events, working on their walk, but also working on their professional lives and just their personal lives, is so important. If you're just waiting for the time, which is we call it the lead up window, the 30 to 90 days before a pageant, that's usually when people do the real work. Yeah. It's the people that are doing it all year long that usually, I always see them every time in the top 5, and I'm like, yep, she's there again. Exactly. And I've had enough years under my belt with, 45, 50 pageants now that I see a pattern, and that pattern continually pops up all the time. I mean, yes, there are some girls that are just genetically blessed and they come in there, but, I've also seen those girls come in thinking, they get complacent, they think, oh, I'm good enough. And then the girls who worked hard come in and Hannah Brown is probably one of my best examples. I talk about almost every pageant I go to. I give this talk at the beginning when we do the welcome meeting. Is Hannah Brown finished the year before you guys went to USA together, out of the 15 in Alabama. She was bleach blonde. She was, and Hannah wouldn't mind me saying this, she was a little overweight, and she knew it. but she was trying to be what everybody told her she should be.
Mm-hmm.
She left there, didn't want to do it again, was done. She's like, I'm done with pageants. Apparently her mother, a couple of weeks before the next year, your year, said, I signed you up for Alabama, you're doing it. Now, I guess Hannah had already been taking good care of herself. She lost a lot of weight, got in good shape. She changed her hair. It was now brown instead of blonde. And she basically said, I'll go do it, but I just don't care what people think. Literally, like, that's how she came in. I remember sitting down with her and she's like, because I remember seeing her, I was like, wow, you have changed in the last year. And she's like, yeah, she's like, I'm being me. I really could care less what happens this weekend. I'm just doing it because my mom signed me up. And, look where she is now. I mean, it's amazing when you just let down your guard.
Right.
Stop trying to be the Instagram superstar that everybody thinks you need to be and just be yourself. And, the world will love you. And I remember when she called me to ask me about, should she go on the Bachelorette, The Bachelor. And then Bachelorette. I remember she was sitting at a cafe and we talked on FaceTime for like an hour. And she was like, I don't know if I want to put myself out there in front of the world and this and that. And I said, well, what do you really want to do? And she's like, I would like to find a guy. And I'm like, well, that's kind of what the show's for. I'm like, I don't know how genuine the guys are, but if you want to do it, go do it. And it ended up being her and Kayla Miller-Keys, who I had also crowned. Both went on in the same season. So it was really interesting.
Yeah, that was one heck of a season for our 2018 class for Miss USA on The Bachelor there.
Well, you guys ran after The Bachelor, that's for sure.
No, I didn't, but the girls did it. Hey, now they're, well, I guess Kaylin's with the guy, but.
And then the other Hannah was a runner-up in Alabama 2 years before that, Hannah Godwin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so right. It was just like pageant Bachelor.
It really was. I mean, they might as well just.
I don't know where the stereotype comes from. I have no idea.
Yeah, seriously. No, I want to go back to something you said. Actually, I was talking to it was actually an athletic director of a high school here in Arizona, and he was saying, one of the biggest interview questions that our graduates are going to have this year is what did you do during this time of quarantine to better yourself? And I was like, whoa, that'd be a great pageant question. So, I mean, if you're competing in a pageant and you're thinking like you've just been sloughing off these past few months during quarantine, jump on it and do something that is changing the world, changing your life and bettering yourself and getting one step closer to the crown, because that would be, I tell you what, that's a question I would ask, because I'm so passionate, just like you, Tim, about like taking this time of crisis moment and using it as a breakthrough and, to your next success. And for many people listening, hopefully that's a crown.
And look, let's just talk about the reality of the situation. I mean, that's very true. I mean, my business partner and I almost had that very conversation because obviously, politics is in it. There's all kinds of stuff, but I think a lot of people are concerned about where's the country going? Like, are we going to stay together, or what's going to go on? There's a lot of concerns about what's possible.
Yeah.
And I remember I just said to him, you know what? Let's just put our head down, move forward. Let's just pretend like it's all going to work out okay. And let's just give it everything we got. And, like I said earlier, we're up 40% on sales since, I guess, April 15th or whatever.
Awesome.
And, it's just like, we feel very blessed, but, we've tried to just not deal with some stuff. And I mean, we even had, just as an example, 2 weeks ago, we had a customer who wanted us to come out and give a public thing about where we stood on Black Lives Matter. And I'm like, look, that's not what we're here to do. We serve food. Sorry, not bringing social justice into our business. And, you deal with it, but, and you're going to deal with it in the pageant world as well. I guarantee a Miss Universe organization is not going to let you get away without talking about that type of stuff.
Oh, no.
So you have to be prepared, no matter where you stand on it, to really be honest about where you stand and not be afraid of that. I know a lot of people are afraid to say where they stand on things, but when you get up on the stage, you have to. And I think people appreciate genuine answers.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. I struggled with that myself for many, many years until that same year, just like Hannah Brown. It's like when you start being yourself and you stop, following the patterns or what you think a pageant girl should be or a pageant winner, that's the year you win. More than likely.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Tim, so much for joining me today. It's been such a pleasure talking to you and finally getting to connect. So congratulations, by the way, on your new little one, your sweet little family, and all, everything you're up to. So thank you so much for taking the time today.
You bet. Stay in touch. Okay.
All right. We'll do it. Thanks, Tim. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that episode. I would love to hear from you in the comments below. Also, please follow me on social media at Miss Tori Kruse. Until next time, be unstoppable.